Hi, Claire and James here. Just before we get stuck into this week's episode, we wanted to let you know the exciting news that the Midlife Reset audit is now live. This is a first of its kind personalised diagnostic tool designed for midlifers by midlifers.
In just 3 minutes, the audit will help you pinpoint what's really holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife, and most importantly, provide tailored strategies on how to take back control. Midlife doesn't have to be a time of uncertainty. It can be an era of growth, discovery, and well-being. So to go ahead and take the audit, go to themidlifementors.com/audit.
On this week's podcast episode, we're joined by JJ Virgin, a world-renowned celebrity nutrition expert, fitness authority, and a New York Times bestselling author of books such as The Virgin Diet and The Sugar Impact Diet. She's helped millions of people transform their health by challenging conventional wisdom and offering practical strategies for eating, moving, and living better.
In today's episode, we explore JJ's journey to becoming one of the most trusted voices in health and wellness. We talk about her early days at the legendary Gold's Gym in LA in the 80s, how she trailblazed the original Strong Not Skinny movement, and also how she first began many years ago talking about gut health and supplementation. This is a hugely informative episode full of tips, especially for midlife women. So go ahead and grab a pad and pen because you're definitely going to want to take notes.
Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. It's been a while since we've done one together. We've had lots of people, guests, experts on our podcast, which have been amazing.
I feel like we've done a lot of podcasting. We haven't actually done much together recently.
No, I don't know why that is.
That's because you ran off to Devon for a retreat, didn't you?
You did.
You left me on my own in London.
I did run off to Devon for my own personal retreat, which was absolutely amazing. Switched off from everything digital. The only thing I used was Google Maps at one point, so I didn't get lost on my way to a wild swimming spot. But apart from that, it was absolutely incredible. And then you came to meet me in Exmouth, down on the coast in Devon. That was lovely.
A couple of days down there, walking on the beach, swimming in the sea. It was lovely.
It was lovely. But now we're back, and we're kind of going into the season where the summer holidays are over. Kids are going back to school. So we will be doing another intake of our midlife reset. So we'll be sending out information about that really shortly, and we'll put some links in the show notes for that as well. But if you're not on our email list, make sure you get on there. Just go onto our website, join our email list, and you'll find out when our next intake of the midlife reset is. But without further ado,
we've got a fabulous guest. I'm going to tease it out. Someone we met in America ourselves last year.
You remember we went to the US and did a whole tour.
So without further ado, let's introduce. Go for it, Claire.
So we are really delighted to have JJ Virgin on our podcast today. So JJ Virgin is a celebrity nutrition expert and fitness hall of famer and a 4 times New York Times bestselling author. JJ is super passionate about aging powerfully through the menopause and beyond. JJ, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on our podcast. Really excited.
I'm thrilled to be here. Well, thank you for being on mine yesterday too.
Yes, we've had 2 evenings with JJ, and it was an absolute pleasure to be on yours yesterday.
Yeah.
And now we're very, very excited to ask you all about, you know, how you got into this space, because I know you've been in it for a really long time. You're not new to this space at all. You've been in this space for a really long time. So just wondered if you could start really, JJ, about, you know, telling us how you got started on your own wellness journey, but also getting into this space as a business.
Yeah, well, there really wasn't a space. I mean, so back when I started, I actually started because I wanted to be a theater actress. A musical theater actress. Yeah. So I grew up in San Francisco. I went to American Conservatory Theater So I wanted to be an actress, of course, along the way. And this was really something that you don't realize these pivotal moments till much later. Part of being an actress, I was in San Francisco. I went to a modeling agency because I'm 6 feet tall. And I remember at the time, I was super athletic. I'd always been dancing and doing gymnastics and acrobatics. And so I go to this modeling agency and they tell me that I need to lose 20 to 30 pounds.
Wow.
And at the time, I looked basically not quite as ripped as I am now, but pretty darn close, right? I pretty much like, it's funny, I just went home to clean out my, the house I grew up in, and my cheerleading outfit was there and still fits. Exactly.
Oh, wow, amazing.
So if that tells you anything, like this all fits. So I come home and I start reading diet books, and this was in the 1970s. And I start reading diet books and counting calories, and I lose 10 pounds. And my dance teacher looks at me and she goes, "Are you sick? What's wrong with you? Are you anorexic?" And I remember thinking about this at the time. And, I'd meet these models. And years later, I worked in South Miami Beach with the models, helping them. You supposedly get in shape for modeling. And it was a joke because they didn't want to put on muscle. They just wanted to be, it was like, the cocaine and lettuce diet, right? And, I remember looking at these models going, they don't have any muscle. They're literally like skin and bones. And they were scared to death of putting on muscle and getting too big and not being able to fit in the fashions. So I made this decision back then. And you look at these things and go, wow, that really just changed the entire trajectory of my life. Because at the time I was in gymnastics, I was doing, all sorts of sports. And I was also lifting weights with the high school football team because we had figure salons and calisthenics and jazzercise back then. That's why I say the industry kind of like there was not a lot of industry when this all started. And so I decided that I'd rather be strong than skinny.
Yeah.
And now it's really in style. And up until even like couple years ago, it wasn't. So it's like, but I was like, my body is not skinny. It's strong. It's always been strong, not skinny. And so, I think back then, because my dance teacher had me start teaching dance, because once you get to a certain level of proficiency, which I was at that level of like, performing in big theaters and stuff, the best way to learn is to teach. And so she also had me teach calisthenics. And then I started teaching aerobics. Then I started teaching aerobics for Richard Simmons. And then someone asked me to come to their house to teach aerobics, and that started personal training. Right. And as far as I know, talking to Mark Sisson, he thinks that it's like me, Mark Sisson, Tony Horton, Body by Jake, like first personal trainers. Then I went off to Japan to teach aerobics. So it just is this, like there really wasn't stuff going on. But these things would just kind of come up and I go, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then I started to realize that I better learn nutrition too. I was in a grad program in exercise phys and biomechanics. And so I jumped into a PhD program in exercise science and nutrition and aging. It was the trifecta. And then I realized I really needed to study nutrition because I'd run out of exercise science classes to take. And there you have it. It's like, but back then, if you were studying nutrition, you became a dietitian and you worked in a hospital. Clearly, I didn't want to do that. If you went and studied exercise science, you became a physical therapist. I was like, I don't want to do that. By the time I graduated from college, I had a full-blown personal training business. So I was paying my way through all my school, and they all wanted you to become a professor. So it just was kind of creating things because there weren't things. There wasn't an industry. I mean, I still remember those first gyms as they started to grow because I started to run aerobics departments at gyms and personal training departments at gyms. And then I had a personal training company with other personal trainers and all of that. So
I love
it. A long time, 40 years, man.
Trailblazing. I love that.
Do you know, I didn't actually know all of that background story and just actually how you started out. So I absolutely love that because I think, I became a PT over 10 years ago now. So in comparison to you, like I'm a newbie to it. But even back then, it wasn't what it is now. I think with the Instagram and that whole strong, not skinny thing, which is great. I do think there's been like a real boom in personal training and weightlifting and all that kind of stuff. So, I've seen that change, but you must have, I mean, goodness me, like 40 years of doing it.
Well, here was what was funny. In graduate school, all of the graduate research was being done on cardio. And in fact, so Precor donated all of this cardio equipment to our lab. Everything was being done on cardio training. We were told back then a couple things. Number one, don't have anyone lift weights until they lose weight. Number two, if you can't do 30 minutes of cardio, don't even bother because you need to get into your fat burning zone. And at the time, I was training women who were 45 plus. And I saw very quickly that the cardio thing was not working. It wasn't working. And, everything was about eating less, exercising more, creating a very specific caloric deficit, not really worrying. It was very, very low fat. That was the time period this was.
Yeah.
It was during Susan Powter, Stop the Insanity, and Pritikin. And, you should eat 10% of your calories from fat. All I saw with all of this was it wasn't working for my 45 plus year old women. And then I was also going down to Gold's Gym in Venice where I was working out. Because again, remember, I decided to be strong, not skinny. And the women I saw down there in their 70s, I would have killed to look like. And so, it doesn't take long to look at your professors who look like crap. I was looking at my professors who were telling me I could get all the protein I needed from a potato, and they looked like potatoes. You are what you eat. And then I was looking at these women down at Gold's Gym who looked fabulous. And I went, I see what they're doing here at Gold's. They had a little loft with 3 bicycles, 3 Schwinn Aerodyne bikes up on the top. This was before the thing expanded. And then all the rest was weights. And you only did the cardio right before a competition when you were trying to rip off that last little bit of body fat. No one did it. All they did was resistance training. Yeah. And they ate basically chicken and broccoli. And they were like in whey protein shakes, and they were ridiculous. So I was like, all right, you know what? I think I'm going to a success leaves clues. I'm going to follow what they're doing, and I'm going to have my clients do this. And I was getting crazy great results. I stopped all the steady state cardio, started having people do HIIT training. But I mean, again, this was like rogue behavior, right?
It would have been, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. You've had an amazing career.
Incredible.
What are some of the mistakes that you still see people making when they come to you today, or when you're training people and they're like, oh, I've been trying this, I've been trying that, but nothing's working? What are the classic mistakes?
So I think that, and this just literally happened 2 days ago, because I did a little Instagram contest in the winter. I got to talk to the winner, do a little coaching call. And I was like, I need to do these way more often now. Because what it confirmed with me is what I've seen over and over and over again. And you always think maybe it changed. It has not changed. We have to track what we're doing. What you measure and monitor, you can improve. I am very clear with what I tell people to do in terms of how much protein they need due to anabolic resistance as we age, women needing, and our protein recommendations in the United States are ridiculous. They're half of what they should be.
Yeah.
So this woman yesterday, she goes, I'm doing what you're saying. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's walk through it. I go, tell me what you have for breakfast. She goes, well, today I had 2 eggs. And I'm like, 2 eggs. All right. Anything else? Nope. 2 eggs. And I go, well, that was 12 grams of protein. She goes, well, that's not normal. I go, okay, well, what's normal? She goes, well, normal is oatmeal, a tablespoon of nut butter, and some nut milk. I go, all right, let's add that one up. She goes, oh, and an egg on the side. I go, okay, well, we've got 12 grams of protein again. Oh, I go, my very first thing I tell everybody is you must track with a scale and a an app, not just, oh, I had this much of something. No, put it on the scale.
Yeah.
The scale does not lie. So, and here was this woman thinking that she was doing what she was supposed to be doing, but she was not even close to where she needed to be because she wasn't really tracking it. And I see this all the time, both with what you're eating, And here's the thing. There are people, I love the area of weight loss resistance. What could get in the way of you losing weight or cause you to gain weight? But the reality is you got to make sure that the basics are taken care of first. You do not major in the minors until you've got the majors out of the way. And so often we're not getting the protein we need. We're eating way too many calories because we're not getting the protein we need. So we're overeating on carbs in order to try to get enough essential amino acids somewhere, right? And we're still hungry because we're not eating protein. So we're overeating and under-eating what we need, and we're under-moving, and we might be going to the gym, but we're sitting on our butts the rest of the day, and we're not tracking, so we don't know. I mean, the average person in the United States is moving 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day. That's
nuts.
pathetic. That's pathetic. Like triple that as your base.
Did I see on Instagram actually that you are doing an 8K challenge a day or something? Is that have I made that up? I saw something
maybe because I mean that was my foundational of like no matter what I will not, and my husband knows this, like he's like, oh shit, excuse me, but he's like, we're not going to bed, because I'll come home if we were at an event in Arizona, and it was a meeting, like an all-day meeting 2 days in a row. And so I'm like standing up, I'm doing everything I can to not be sitting for 8 hours. But we get back to the hotel and I'm like at 6,500 steps. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this. And so we were on this, I think the 17th floor. So I go, I'm going to take the stairs thinking that'll do it. It didn't do it. I was like, that is such a ripoff. What a ripoff. Like, so then I get to the 17th floor. My husband's like, I'll meet you there. I'm not doing that. Anyway. So then I go, honey, I have to go back out. And he's like, and he's not going to not come with me. It's now like 9:30 at night. And I'm like, I got to go back out and walk around, Tempe, Arizona, because I don't have my steps in. But I think we have to make that kind of, stake in the ground. And I have that stake in the ground where I will look at this every day. Doesn't matter if I'm traveling, doesn't matter what's going on. I'm going to get those. That is my bare minimum 8,000. So that's the first thing. The next thing I'm doing, like I work out every day. I actually missed today. This is the first time, and I made a conscious effort last night. And I think this is important and it's instructive. Last night, my husband's flight got delayed. He was bringing home the little puppy, the Pom Chi. I know.
And she's adorable.
She should really make a show here. But the Pom Chi. So then, finally his flight lands at 10:30. So we get home at 11. Yeah. And now the Pom Chi has to meet the other dogs and all this has to go on. So I fall asleep at 12. Now I was supposed to go to the chiropractor and a yoga class. And the chiropractor was 7:45, yoga was 8:15. And I thought last night, I go, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Because I fall asleep at 12:30. I'm not going to get up at 6:30. That's a ripoff. And so I just made the conscious decision. I was sleeping till 8. Mm-hmm. Because I will always, I choose sleep. Yes. But I also looked at my schedule and went, I will fit things in throughout the day today, and I'll do some exercise snacks. So my current challenge, because, now I've got my steps, that is just ingrained. Now what I'm doing is I work out every day, but I wanted to start doing more exercise snacks throughout the day. I'm sure you've seen the research about, if you do air squats after you eat, you're going to lower your blood sugar. So I was like going, okay. And every day I was like, okay, I'm going to do these snacks. Well, instead of being smart and just, Gary Kellering it and picking one thing, I was like, had this grandiose plan of this all throughout the day. I finally went, knock it off. Just decide that you're going to get one in every day. If you get more, great, but just one a day.
Yeah.
And record it. So I've been videotaping this to give, to get on Instagram every day. Here's my dose today. So every day I've just been putting in a thing extra. So not my steps, not my workout. It's a little, and I don't think people should snack. So this is like the legal snack, your exercise, right?
Yeah.
So that's the next challenge.
I also think what you said there about just, I think being sensible and being compassionate with ourselves. I've seen myself change with this in the recent years. Exactly what you just said. If I'm going to bed really late, for some reason or another, we prioritize our sleep. And actually, I know the knock-on effect that if you have like 5 hours sleep or 6 hours sleep and you get up and do all of that crazy stuff anyway, it's actually going to have a negative impact on you. So I think for me, that's definitely been a shift, because before I'd have been like, right, still going to get up,
no, I don't want to miss it. And I was like, you know what? This is,
Yeah.
if you plan 7 days a week of working out, you're getting in your steps, you're throwing in exercise snacks, and you miss a workout, it's okay. In fact, it's usually better. However, if I did have, like, we just went back and forth to Europe a couple times this summer. And with that, we had some weird time zone adjusting.
Yeah.
And when I do have that, or if I do have, a night where I don't have great sleep, the hack, and I'm not someone who likes hacks, but this is a good one, is creatine.
Oh, talk to us more about that.
So it's interesting. I've been really digging into creatine, and I sort of feel like, how have I missed this? When I used to take people to Gold's Gym in Venice to train back in the 80s, all the bros, all the dudes used creatine. So I was like, oh, it's a dude thing, right? So I completely dismissed it. And a couple of years ago, I started looking at it and go, oh, this is like the perfect, every woman 40 plus should be taking creatine. Bold statement, but the reality is women have 70, 80% less tissue stores than men. We're probably getting less in our diet because it's in meat. And, most women are scared of meat. I don't know why. And really, once you cook the meat, it goes down significantly. So when you have creatine, it's in majority's in your muscles, but some is in your brain as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very energizing. It lends creatine to the phosphocreatine system, which allows you to work out harder, which means you're going to build more muscle and better bone. We also know that it helps with skin wrinkling. So it helps you and also recover from a workout. But the other cool thing, it's really amazing for your brain. It helps with depression. It helps with reducing cognitive decline, and it helps you with sleep deprivation. So I used it this last time going back and forth. I literally went from Florida to London to Boston to Spain to Lisbon to Florida to British Columbia.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Back to Florida. And I'm like, this was poor planning, this is poor planning. So, because usually we'll do like jumps that are all going in the right direction, and not this time. Let's go 9 hours difference. And I had zero issues with this time because I used this creatine. I couldn't believe it. I was like, where has this been all my life?
And actually, that kind of leads us on to something we wanted to ask you about, actually, which is your supplement range. I'd love to talk to you about that, because I know that's super popular and something that, I don't know how many years you've been doing that, but can you just give us some of your thoughts on actually what supplements you've seen are really useful for men and women, but mainly women particularly, because obviously you're a massive advocate for helping women age powerfully through the menopause and beyond. What kind of supplements out of your range as well? What made you use that, launch those supplements, and which ones do you find are most helpful for women going through the menopause?
And I always say, I use different skincare at 20 and 30, and I use different supplements. So I have been in the supplement industry for decades. In my 20s, I got recruited into Nu Skin when it went into interior design nutritionals. And that's where it all started. Right. And then I started working with a professional brand supplement company that only sold through doctors. And that was amazing because I learned so much. I then started working with a lab company as well, with this supplement company, to teach how to use labs to then recommend the right supplements and to make sure the supplements were working. So it's really cool. And it's very different than like, take this, because it sounds good, or it's got a pretty label, right? And so when you look at what goes on as we age, we have a couple things going on that you really want to combat, because especially if you look at now, I don't know how many hallmarks of aging there were, because it was like 9, then it was 11. So maybe it's 13, but the majority of these hallmarks of aging really have to do with what's going on with our mitochondria, where we produce energy. And so when I look at, and then you look at one of the big things that happens in menopause. So what happens? Our estrogen goes down, our metabolism then starts to slow. We start to lose bone and muscle. Estrogen goes down, boom, bone and muscle go down like off the cliff, and we become insulin resistant. So what could we do to offset this I'm a big fan of hormone replacement therapy. So that's not a supplement, but I'm like a huge fan. But you also don't want to take hormone replacement therapy where you could be orthomolecular and giving your body the nutrients that it needs naturally. So you want to make sure that you're getting what you need and doing diet and lifestyle first with supplements. And then you're using the hormones at the lowest level that you need, right? Yeah. So when you look at what's going on, number one, you want to support your mitochondria. And one of the things that happens as we age is that our mitophagy, or the ability for our mitochondria to recycle, regenerate, renew, and build new mitochondria, goes down. As we age overall, whether it's our bones, our muscles, our mitochondria, we start to break down more than we're building up, right? We don't want that to happen. We want to be in balance. Mm-hmm. So one of the supplements, I wish I made this supplement, I don't, but this one supplement's from Timeline called MitoPure. It's urolithin A. It's a postbiotic that maybe 20% of the people with a great gut microbiome, which is, that's hard enough as it is, but genetically they're able to make this urolithin A compound from things like cranberries and raspberries and walnuts, different polyphenols. But what it does is it basically triggers mitophagy. It allows your body to clean out your mitochondria, take out the gunk, recycle some of that, and use it to make new mitochondria or just get rid of it. So that's one. The next thing that starts to happen as we age is we get what are called these zombie cells. Have you heard of these?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is wild, is this idea that we have these cells in our body that are, they're not useful anymore. They're like old damaged cells, and our body should go through apoptosis and get rid of them. But the problem is, not only is it not getting rid of them, and that's one of the key things exercise does for us, by the way, and I think why cancer risks for people who exercise are so dramatically lower than people who don't, is our body goes through, it helps with apoptosis, getting rid of the old, gunky, damaged cells. Zombie cells are these old, damaged, gunky cells that won't leave, but they are even worse than that. Not only will they won't leave, they try to recruit good cells and make them bad too. So, that's why they're called zombie cells. So I take a product from Qualia called Senolytic twice a month that goes in twice a month and basically prunes out the gunk and gets rid of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So that's the next thing I do. The next one, and I don't really understand, this is one that I make, and I actually bought back, I sold my supplement company because I thought that was going to allow me to do really cool, amazing things. Discovered that was not the case. Bought it back. So now I'm doing really cool, amazing things. I'm going through and looking at every single product and going, where do we need to go from here? And one of the products that I think really is hugely important for women 40 plus are essential amino acids. Now, bodybuilders used to use branched chain amino acids. They're not doing that anymore. Now they moved into essentials. We eat protein basically to get these 9 essential amino acids, from which we can make the other 11. And it turns out there's one specific amino acid, leucine, that is the key trigger for mTOR to turn on muscle protein synthesis, but it has to be at a high enough amount. Then we go through about 300 grams of amino acid turnover in our body a day. And so, some of that, of course, is going to be provided by diet. Some of it's our body breaking down and building up. But, I'm just giving my body the building blocks it needs so that it can do all the different things, from building hormones, bones, skin, et cetera. So essential amino acids are one I do every morning. Generally, when I go to the gym, I have my essential aminos, my creatine, and I put some electrolytes in there. In my morning breakfast, I love to do protein shakes and add in some collagen, depending on the type of protein I'm doing. But I think collagen's another one. And I think it's gotten a lot of misinformation out there in the world because people are thinking of it as protein. And yes, it is a protein. It's the most abundant protein in the body. But what you're really using it for is connective tissue. Mm-hmm. And when you look at what's going on with us as we age, connective tissue is the lowest blood supply. It's the hardest thing to turn over. And it's also going to be the limiter as we start to build muscle. The first thing that happens as you start to train is your muscles and nerves talk to each other. Then your connective tissue has to strengthen. Then your muscles strengthen. If your connective tissue isn't strong enough, that's where you're going to get the injury, right? It's going to happen in your cartilage and your tendon and your ligament. So I'm a big, big collagen fan. My husband just had surgery and I've been hammering him like loads of collagen.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool.
I love all of that.
Yeah.
I really love all of that. That's so super, because we get asked about this all the time. It's like, what supplements should I be using, especially like over 40? And I knew that you would give amazing advice, obviously, because of your supplement range as well.
well, there's a couple foundational ones. Like those are the sexy ones.
Yeah.
The fun ones.
Yes.
The non-sexy, but super important. Obviously, vitamin D with K. You are in the
Yes.
UK. Anyone in the UK probably needs more of this than if they were over in Ibiza.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, we told you yesterday about the shit summer that we've had. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I was like, well, you do live in the UK.
Yeah.
Anyway, so vitamin D3 with K, doing a blood test to see where your levels are, optimizing your levels for 50 to 80 NGs per ml, super duper important. Magnesium is another one. And I do electrolyte drinks, usually 2 or 3 a day, but also I take magnesium before bed. And then the other one is fish oil. And this is, of course, going to depend on diet and also what else is going on. You know, if you've got elevated triglycerides, hypertension, any brain issues, you might need more. But I like to do an omega-3 index test. So like I love wherever I can do testing. You know, you might think, oh, but you had to spend $100 on the test. I go, but then I know exactly what I need.
Yes.
So I'm not spending as much, you know, like I don't have to spend as much on the things because I know how much of the thing I actually need for the result.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love all that.
Yeah.
Staying with the nutrition theme, you've obviously authored like several best-selling books on nutrition, the Virgin Diet, Sugar Impact. What would be your top nutrition tips? Obviously, I'm guessing you're going to say like avoid sugar, which is really hard in today's food environment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's what's interesting. I'm coming out with a book in 2026. It sounds ridiculous. It's actually written, but I'm taking people through the program and building a coaching, you know, certifying coaches, et cetera, first. But the Virgin Diet, after this book that's coming out, I may write the Virgin Diet 2.0, which my agent's been wanting me to do forever, and I didn't want to do it. And then all of a sudden I just got inspired. And here's why I think the Virgin Diet works so well in the United States. And I see the UK has a similar problem to the United States. I don't know how much processed food you guys eat. We eat about 70% of our diet is processed food, which is unbelievable. Now, I'm not saying all processed food is bad. And that's, I think, part of the challenge is, you know, I'm talking like the crappy ultra processed food with the very refined grains and bad sugars and bad oils. The reason that I think the Virgin Diet works so well is, number one, it pulled out gluten that creates leaky gut and has glyphosates in the United States that destroys your gut microbiome. But also because when you pull out gluten, dairy, eggs, corn, soy, peanuts, sugar, and artificial sweeteners, you pull out ultra-processed foods. It's pretty darn hard to eat ultra-processed foods with all that stuff pulled out. And so it was like people had remarkable experiences with it. So I'm tempted to go down deeper into the whole food intolerance thing, because there's so much more information about leaky gut, which is ultimately what the Virgin Diet was about, was figuring out which foods work for you and which foods don't. Where I didn't go deep enough is then how do you heal that leaky gut? You know, the biggest part was pulling out the offenders.
Yeah.
So that's the first part. Then I went deeper because when I wrote the Virgin Diet, the biggest challenge people had was with sugar and artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
They were confused. They're like, but it's doesn't have any calories. I'm like, okay, you know, right? So and by the way, there's still a narrative in the United States that Splenda's fine. I'm like, but our body's a history book. You know, here's the challenge with any of these things is we are not taking Splenda and then putting it together with, say, you know, bleached wheat flour, and then, you know, swimming in a chlorine infested pool, and then maybe swallowing some of the fluoride in the toothpaste, despite the fact that the toothpaste container says do not swallow. So we're doing all of that stuff. And all of a sudden you have fluoride, you have chlorine, you have bromide, which, by the way, is a triple threat for your thyroid, but you would never trace it back to the Splenda because you don't, in our body, when we store toxins, it's not one toxin. That's not the problem. The problem is this myriad of toxins that we store because we're being bombarded by things that our body was never meant to handle. And unless we're getting them out because we're saunaing and we're doing fiber and, which how could you get all of this hammering of toxins out? Like we have to be doing this every single day. So that's the issue with Splenda that I see, that I'm like, okay, there's not one study showing that this is problematic. I go, but let's just look at when you eat sweet, you crave more sweet, and we can just go from there. So, the sugar and artificial sweeteners, I wrote a book, and the way I think through diets, whatever they are, I think diets are therapeutic. They're things that we do for the short term to fix the problem, learn something about ourselves, connect the dots, so we can take what's working from that for us at the time with the goals that we have, lifestyle we have, and put them into regular practice. Right? So like I'm using carnivore diet right now therapeutically with someone. Will I do it forever? No, because it will not be good for his microbiome for the long haul. For the short haul, takes decision fatigue out, is an elimination diet, and is fixing his insulin resistance. So, I will use things therapeutically in specific ways. The sugar impact diet was designed to take someone who was a self-proclaimed sugar addict, could not quit. It is the number one recreational drug of choice, and teach them how to get it out of their diet for 2 weeks, do a reset, get their taste buds to recognize like, oh, a blueberry's sweet, right? And then go back and have them taste the stuff again and go, ew, that is disgusting.
It happens. And it's quite fast, like you say, for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's fast.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long.
Yeah, it does not take long. And here's the thing. Savory, sour, salty, protein, like, those are the ones that will take that sweet tooth away.
Yeah.
I think quite often we're craving sweet because we did not eat enough protein.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I've got a question that we hadn't actually prepared or thought about, but I would love your thoughts on this, JJ. So I would love, you're so super inspiring. You've done so much in your life. I mean, I'm so inspired. We're both so inspired by you. Hence the fact that we joined Mindshare, came over to the US to join that. But I wonder, have you got any advice for women that are going through these hormonal changes, going through the physical, mental, kind of spiritual changes that we experience at midlife? Those women that kind of feel that they're struggling, that the best years of their life might be over, that's it for them. And I know you talk so much about aging powerfully and being, really, really taking control, and actually the best years of your life are ahead of you. What kind of advice would you give to those women that are feeling like everything's changing, not necessarily for the good? What bit of advice would you give them?
So everything is true, right? So while it's true that things are changing and there are people who are older who, have very poor quality of life, it is also true that everything is changing. And there are people that are in their 70s and 80s. There's that woman who's 99 that's winning all the swimming championships. So they're both true. Perception creates reality. I got asked a couple of years ago, I was at a talk and someone said, I've lost this weight, I've gotten in better shape, but I'm really afraid I'll become the statistic. And the statistics for diets are 95% of people will gain the weight back. She goes, how do I avoid that? And I go, you just find fitter friends. So how do you, if you are in your 50s thinking, and you're hanging out with a group of people who are like all whining, like my mom was like this, oh my gosh, like the sky was falling, like you call her up and she go, it's raining again. And then, and then if you call her, it's like, oh, we're in a drought. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You can't have both. You can't be in a drought or rainy. Like, I go, well, what's good happening here? Right. So, if you're around people who are looking at aging as a horrible thing and, and they're looking at what they can't have and they're looking at scarcity, get the heck, run away. Like my friends, and I have a broad range of age of friends, but one of my very best friends is 75. She made more money and had a bigger career at 72 than in all of her years before that combined. She is the top transformational leader, female leader in the world, like teaching with the Dalai Lama level. And a badass. And so she is my role model inspiration, not the person who's going, We went to the Grammys a couple years ago and it was Dolly Parton, and I'm like going, Dolly Parton is my inspiration.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton, who wears a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader outfit in her 70s. I'm like, amazing. So, you can find truth in whatever you choose to believe. I'm choosing to believe that I'm going to have the biggest part of my whole career is way out in front of me. It's not behind me. Like that was a warm up. Best shape of my life. I kept hearing, oh, you can't build muscle after that. All that crap. I'm stronger than I've ever been. So like when my son was hit by a car and left for dead in the street, and they're like, he's not going to make it through the night. We overruled them. We basically told him in the hospital, we said to my son Grant, we go, prove every doctor wrong. Prove every doctor wrong. So we've got a kid who's now 12 years out of basically being dead on the pavement, who runs, who walks, who reads, like proved every doctor wrong. So be careful what you let in your mind, right? Because, that perception becomes reality. So choose what you focus on.
Love that.
That's great advice. That is such powerful advice. Such powerful advice.
Thank you. I knew it would be great advice.
This is great advice. And this is all being backed up by more and more research from the schools of positive psychology. Optimists experience better life outcomes, all the rest of it. It's great. I just want to finish by asking, we focus kind of on your health career, but the other side of what you do is your Mindshare Collaborative.
We do want to mention that.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So, gosh, I think like 12 or so years ago. So one of my things that I did was helping doctors bring supplements into their practice and put programs in their practice. And so all my friends have been doctors and healthcare practitioners and going to all the conferences like IFM and A4M. And like 12, 13 years ago, as I was building my online business, I was at a marketing conference, and I'd go to these marketing conferences and there'd be 500 people there and like 3 health people. And I remember asking a guy, I go, how would I 10X my business? He goes, oh, you do it with partners. And I'm like, what, the guy over there that's got the roofing company and the gal with the copywriting company, like what partners are we talking about? They're not here. And I had a little light bulb of, I'll bring the people that are at my medical conferences to the marketing conference. And so we started having lunches at the medical conference or the marketing conferences. And then we got too big. And so then I had a day after the marketing conference and I started having my own conference. Then the conference got so big that I started a mastermind and it just became a thing. And it literally, I remember early on, we were having our conference. There was like 100 or so people and Dave Asprey was in the back making bulletproof coffee for everybody. And it's just so funny. And this gal's crying. And I go, why are you crying? And she goes, I just realized I've invested more time, money, and energy into my garden than I ever had in my health business. I've never thought, like, no one thinks of it as a business. And, early on, I was like, I want to help 1 million people get healthy. And then I was on Dr. Phil for 2 years. And I was like, okay, how would you do 1 billion? Because I clearly did 1 million. His viewership was what? I don't know, 50 million, some crazy number, probably 13 million. And so you help do 1 billion by helping 10,000 other practitioners. And so we're well on our way. We probably have helped like 400 million people just with the information we get out there. Yeah. So that's the big dream.
That's amazing.
And we absolutely loved it. Like that was the main focus of us coming over to the US, and we made our little road trip around it. It was an amazing event. The dressing up was awesome. That evening was just great fun. The whole
gotta have dress up parties because most of the people in health are super introverted.
Yeah.
So this is it's what I do. I'm like, everyone's going to dress up as an extrovert. Yes. And it breaks the ice and everyone just gets over themselves.
It was the whole thing was absolutely amazing. The accommodate for the accommodation was incredible as well. So
JJ, thank you so much.
Yeah.
If people want to connect with you, find out more about you, what's the best way to do that?
So jjvirgin.com website with everything. Obviously, I've got a podcast, Well Beyond 40, because you guys are on it. And we do a lot on Instagram and YouTube. And then for Mindshare, it is under Mindshare Collaborative, although we are shifting it a little bit, but you'll be able to find it that way as we're making a big announcement this year as we are rebranding and stepping into a way bigger base.
Exciting.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes.
That as
Yay.
well.
We'll
Look out
put
for that.
those links in the show notes. JJ,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It's been such an inspiring conversation. Like it's been incredible. Thank
It
you. for your
really
time.
has. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
JJ.
you.
Really. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And don't forget to take the Midlife Reset Audit now to receive personalised insights into what's holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife. So go ahead and take the audit now at themidlifementors.com/audit.